Welcome to Uxbridge Beat, the podcast where we feature the who's who of Uxbridge, Ontario. My name is Scott Campsell.
And I am Jennifer Neveu-Campsell, and today we are chatting with local radio broadcaster Dan Pollard. If you have tuned in at any time to our local radio station 105.5, then you are very familiar with the voice of today's guest.
Dan has an illustrious career that expands well past our local radio station. Well before he worked here in Uxbridge, Dan's experience in the radio world has seen many chapters.
Beginning with CKLY, Dan moved on to CBC Sports, NHL Network, and Sportsnet, just to name a few. He has interviewed everyone from our local personalities to music and sports celebrities, and everyone in between.
As one of my first radio mentors, he actually could be the reason why Uxbridge Beat was born in the first place.
Let's find out what puts the beat into his broadcasting heart.
Well, this is a big deal. This is almost like going back to when you and I were able to do radio stuff before the pandemic. And when we weren't calling in, we were actually in the studio and all professional now on Uxbridge Beat. How are you?
Good. Yeah, it is kind of strange in that we've got human beings back into studios. It is so much better. You really lost that interaction during COVID.
Uxbridge Beat.
Yes.
So we're focusing on Uxbridge people.
Yes.
Tell us about your roots, your connections, your childhood.
Well, I moved from Oshawa to Uxbridge when I was 10 years old. My dad worked in the brewer's retail, and he became a manager, so it was a step up for him. He'd been working in Oshawa for a while as an assistant manager, and they said, well, you want a store? And he said, sure. Well, he came to Uxbridge. What I didn't know was that Uxbridge didn't have a beer store. I know it's hard to believe, but Uxbridge didn't have a beer store. They had a trailer, and they bought the building where they still are to this day. And my dad became the first ever manager up here, and we moved up here, and I said, where are you taking us? We came up in the winter.
Coming to work in a trailer.
Well, back then, he had the building by then, but the thing was, he brings the family up, and our house was still being built. It was at the corner of Glen Acres, and there were no houses. There was no Quaker Village. It was a farm. There was a barn right across the road, and that was all farm field all the way up to the 6th.
How old were you then?
10 years old.
10 years. Oh.
10 years old. We literally came up through, and you know when they talk about the snow hitting the bottom of the hydro, they hit the bottom of the hydro wires. My brother and I are looking at each other going, are we going to the Arctic? Where are we going? And it didn't take long to fall in love with this town. My first thing was go to hockey tryouts. And I'd been playing in Oshawa. It was an easy transition, and that's where my first friends were made, right there.
Do you have a lineage in radio? I guess not, if Dad was in the beer store.
No, and that's the weird thing is people go, where did you and your brother come from? My brother's an actor, and he got into the show business side, and I did radio. And my dad has a very dry sense of humor, though. And my mom's family, very social and very much, gatherings. And I can remember my great aunt playing a ukulele, and my mom played an accordion and those kinds of things. So I guess maybe that was the side. But if you looked at my friend, going, "Where are you sure they're your kids?" And it was a natural thing. And what I found out that I would think I was maybe 5, 6 years old. I would, when we were living in Oshawa, I'd take a toilet paper roll and use it as a microphone while the kids were playing road hockey, and I'd do play-by-play. I don't even remember doing anything.
So they're playing and you're doing commentary.
I'm doing commentary from the front window. And so when I said, this is what I want to do for a career, they went, uh-huh.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and that's when I first heard that story. I had no idea. I just knew. When I got involved in school, I did audio, visual, and things like that, and I knew that I really liked doing that stuff. So it was a natural transition when I decided to go to college.
But you didn't start in radio. You were on TV first, were you not?
No, I was a radio guy. Okay. First job was CKLY in Lindsay. So it was nice. It was close to home, and I did overnights, and I ended up working 6 days a week, basically, and I did the overnight show. And at that point, you programmed your own music. So CFTR was actually off the air at that point overnights because they were doing work on their transmitter. So I knew all the kids were coming from school, and they were up in the Lindsay area, and they're all in cottage country. So I started playing CFTR music. Well, I had a huge following. I was only there for 3 months because I went, I think I can find another job. And I found a job in Oshawa at CCAR at that time after 3 months. And I should say, I was finishing college and working overnights at the same time. So I didn't get a lot of sleep, which continues the trend to this day. But and then I went to Oshawa, and from Oshawa I went to Q107. I was in my early 20s, and I was at Q107, which didn't happen very often.
Where'd you go for college?
I went to Seneca College at Newnham campus at that point. And I've always kept a connection, and that same program is the same one that is now at York University.
So is that what made you teach there too?
Yeah, I always kept a connection with the teachers, and I'd go back sometimes for some of the graduations and help out. I did teach a little bit, and then I got on. They said, I think you'd be good on the advisory board. So I was on the advisory board for quite a while, and then became president of the advisory board, and then ended up getting out at I believe I was there for the transition to York University. I remember being part of that, and then just got too busy and couldn't do it anymore. But I always kept that connection with Seneca College.
Is the program a lot different from when you went through?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Oh, yes. There's equipment. It was theater of the mind in many ways, not just for the listener. It was, we had like old turntables. I think probably these were like Pioneer turntables. Like they first invented them. And reel-to-reel, but they were old machines. And I remember, bless his heart, Bob Durant, who worked at CKFM years ago, he was there, one of our teachers, and, you come into class and he's got his newspaper open. Okay, write some news stories. That was the teaching back then. It's much more intensive, and people are coming out with a lot more. But if you had the talent, you could do it. I refused, when I went back and I talked to students, I refused to do the line that, don't ever get in this business. It's a hard business. No. Get in the business, but if you want it, you have to have that passion. Don't pretend. Well, I just want to be a DJ and spin. No, that's not going to work, because there are millions of people like that. And we found out just how tough it is to stay in the business, especially in recent years. But if you got that passion, nothing can stop you from doing it. And I've been in and out of the business. I got fired by Gary Bettman, and I quit. I got out of the broadcast business, but something drew me back in, and I've never left again.
Tell us about being fired. I want to know more about that.
Oh, it's twice. I got let go twice. So one time I was at Q107, and some bodies started to fly around, and I knew somebody had given me a heads up that something was going on. I had talked to the folks at the Fan, so I had already talked to Scott Midcalf, and they said, well, if anything happens, let us know. And back then, a guy by the name of Gary Dunford used to do something in the Toronto Sun, and it was a media. Well, guess who was on page on Monday? My name was there, and I got let go. They let go a bunch of people. They looked and, okay, you're making such and such and such, you're gone. And that's when they bought the Howard Stern program. So they needed all that money. Everybody was gone. Bill Carroll, I think, was the only one left when everything was said and done. And the Fan phoned me the next day. And so I stayed in the business. When I was at the NHL Network, so I'd already made the transition to television. I'd worked at Global, I worked at TSN, went to the NHL Network. I was let go by the NHL because I did an interview with Gary Bettman, which Mr. Bettman did not like, because I held his feet to the fire. And he was my boss, and apparently he doesn't like that. So he literally went into an office, somebody told me, and he said, when is his contract up? Do not renew it. And I was working out of here in Canada, so it was easy for him to do it. He was in New York. And
what do you mean held his feet to the fire? Or can you not?
I asked him some tough questions during an interview, and I got ahead of him. Gary has to be the smartest guy in the room. And when you're working for him, you better let him be the smartest guy in the room. And I didn't. I was ticked off. There were the circumstances involved in it. I used to work late at night till 2 o'clock, sometimes 3 o'clock in the morning. I had to go in early to do an interview. So I got in that day, and they said, oh, no, it's canceled. But I'm already at work. So I blew off a half a day. Came in the next day to do the interview. Oh, well, you're going to have to wait because he's doing an interview with somebody before. And yet they had told me that I was supposed to do an interview. So I'm ticked off. I'm not soft pedaling anything. And it was a point where the NHL was making a transition with the headshot rule. And I said, is this the first time in the middle of a season a rule is changed where a player could be involved in an incident the night before, not receive a penalty, and the next day be suspended for 3 games? And he didn't like that. And then I got ahead of him because he said something. Yeah, I said, well, how does it work for the referees? Well, they'll just call it. And the players, how do they make that trend? Well, they have to make the trend. And I got ahead of him, and I could tell he was ticked off. And I finished the interview, and I said to my producer, I'm in trouble. And he goes, no, I think it was a good interview. I went, no, I can tell he's not happy. And sure enough, he went into an office and said, don't renew the contract when I finished the interview.
So how do you balance that? Okay, so like obviously you were ticked off, you're angry, but those are pretty good questions. So how do you, when you're about to do an interview, balance the, I'm going to ask a tough question, but still keep the integrity of the person or not push the limits too much?
I probably could have asked the same question in a different way, but I was so ticked off. That was my lesson going away from that, is don't give up your integrity, but how do you do it? It's no different than when you're dealing with a child, and they could say one phrase one way and another way it's kind of snarky, and you know that they're calling you out, or they're don't be so stupid, and yet it's the same words, but it's how you do it. And that's what I've learned, especially during interviewing, is how do you phrase things? You want somebody to be comfortable. It's not because I'm going to ambush them, but you want them to be comfortable to be able to answer questions truthfully. Because some people come in with agendas, and that's probably the sense that Gary got. Oh, this guy's got an agenda. What's going on here? And it didn't work out as well as, and it fell on me. It was me.
Do you regret it?
Oh yeah. Yeah, well, you know what? No, because those are life lessons that I learned. So I had to learn that lesson. And, you move on, and it gave me other opportunities. I got out of the business at that point for a while, and then ended up getting the opportunity to work at CBC. So I got back in the business. The first time I walked in that building, I went, oh, I got to be here. I have to be back in this business. This is what I was meant to do. And sure enough, I worked and worked at Sportsnet as well, and it opened up doors. And then this Uxbridge came open, and the chance to come back to your hometown is very, very cool.
You and I have talked about that a little bit, but do you want to go into that a little bit? How did you show up at 105.5 in town?
Yeah, well, word came out that they were going to start a radio station in Uxbridge. So all my friends, you got to be working there. You got to be working there. Well, it's going to be a small station, and I'm not sure we're going to be able to work it out economically. We'll see what's going on. So I was still at CBC, and I started talking to Frank Torres, who owns Uxbridge. We had worked together at Q107 years ago. And he was interested, and they had a couple of other names. So I had to actually go in, and I had a job interview. And I was like, okay, I've been in the business for 20 plus years. Okay, fine. I don't mind. But I knew that I knew the town. I knew people. I mean, literally, I could phone the mayor at home, and she knew my family. Gary Lynn was the mayor at the time. And there were people who were pushing for me as well on the other side, who knew these guys and knew that they were going to be advertisers. So it all tied in. And I was ready. I was ready to make that move. I wasn't working full time at CBC. I was doing freelance work, and this was something steady. I just felt that there was more to give back, and this is the way to do it. So it was an easy transition that way.
What do you think the viability of small town radio is at this point?
You know what? If you had asked me that a year ago, I probably would have given you a different answer. Maybe. Now, I'll give you this answer. It is stronger than it ever has been and will be because of what's happened now with Bell Canada, closing all these radio stations. Small town radio is where it's at. You can have Spotify, you can have whatever, but you know what? I hear on a constant basis. I know I love listening to the music, but I don't get the local information. Now you get the local information with the local radio stations, and it's the independents. It's not the big guys. It's not the Rogers. It's not the Bells, because they're closing these small stations. But it's the independent guys who are buying some of them and providing the information. That is really where small town radio is going to survive. If you look at the music that we play here, it's not a big difference from CHFI. It might be more of a blend of Chum FM and CHFI, but you want to hear your music, you're going to hear your music. But here, oh goodness, Dave Barton says we can use the trails, or guess what? The Lions are opening up the brand new playground. Ooh, I didn't know that. Or hey, there's something we should do on the weekend. I never thought about doing that. Those kinds of things, and I think that's what's going to keep local radio viable. And it can be done because of the technology now. As you know, Scott, I mean, there's not a lot of bodies around here, but we can do it and do it well without having a staff of 7 or 10 people.
Music in Uxbridge is extremely vibrant, extremely strong. Mm-hmm. Do you have a particular quota of local talent that you need to feature or want to feature?
No. Canadian content is dictated by the CRTC. I do the mornings at our sister station, K Country in Keswick, and I just added 2 local artists up there. So we're learning, the local artists. There are local artists that are in our rotation here. They don't rotate through as high as something, for example, what they call the power category, because people want to hear the music that they know and they really like. But what it is it's sprinkled in, and you'll find yourself sitting in the car and all of a sudden, that's Julian Kelland. Oh, that's cool. I know Julian. Or I know Leah Daniels. It is very important to us, and our first ever song played was Julian Kelland, and that's very important to us.
As a voice professional, I'm very curious about your instrument. You have a naturally beautiful speaking voice.
Oh, thank you.
Did that just appear for you naturally?
It evolved over time.
Truly. And was it something that you conceived of, that you thought, okay, I want to sound like such and such, and therefore I'm going to work my instrument towards that goal? Did you have vocal mentors?
I listened to certain... It's funny because people go, well, your favorite singer of all time, Nat King Cole. That voice, I mean, the guy could play the piano, he could do, but it's the voice. That was an instrument. That's incredible. And what he could do to songs and sounds of Frank Sinatra's and the phrasing and things like that, which is unusual because I do the spoken word where they're doing, they're singing. But there's a way to use your voice. And now, through maturity, I know I can, drop the voice or whatever, and then you can bring it up and you're using it as an instrument. When I first started, Frank's wife was listening. Frank Torres, who owns the station, his wife was listening, and she had said something to him of something about that voice. He said something, so she wanted to pay attention to it, and I went, oh, okay. So now there's a realization that you can do that, and you can control the sound that's coming out through your voice and bring people in. And and it's weird because you're just talking into a microphone, but you can bring people in. And part of that probably is public speaking now, is getting out and doing events, and you see, people turn their head all of a sudden, and I've hit the note. Okay. They know, and now they'll start paying attention. So now it's up to me to say something that is going to be relevant to them.
And the reverse is true as well, because there have been lots of voices that I've heard on the radio that I'll just turn off. They can be a very talented broadcaster, and their voice is so grating on my nerves. Click, I'm going to another station. Yeah,
it's funny. It is true. And those kinds of things, and I was taught that at TSN. I remember going in for some checks with the boss, and he goes, your tie's askew. And I said something, brilliant. I can't remember what intro I did, and then he goes, your tie's askew. And I went, okay, about the intro, he goes, I didn't hear it because I was looking at your tie. And I went, oh. And he's right, because you do. You go, oh, or, oh, she's got a new haircut, or he's got his, oh, why'd you get that haircut? The same thing with the voice. It's important because people will, and then they go, oh. And then they also will not give you, even if you've changed your voice, like they don't give you the credit, you have to work your way back into to have people like you. So it is interesting, but there are some mornings where I wonder if anybody's listening because I can't even hear my voice. It's so strained, and I have to take care of it. And as a singing professional yourself, you got to take care of it. So
small muscle athlete.
Yes. Yeah.
Truly.
Well, the people will say that about my brain too, but
oh, I never said that. I don't know if the people
there are many others,
but I didn't say that.
Common question we get at Okamikai Martial Arts and Fitness is, what age can my child start karate?
And the answer is that we have children as young as 3 years old training with us. Austin is one of our amazing students, and he told us some of his favorite things about our program.
Do lots of stuff like karate, like weight falls, kicks, and blocks, and punches. I can do anything.
Austin can do anything, and we are excited to help bring out his potential and your child's too.
We use martial arts as a tool to help your child build confidence, focus, self-discipline, and respect for others.
Contact us at Okamikai Martial Arts and Fitness to get your child started today.
Mom, wake up, it's karate day!
When have you been tongue-tied? You've been in a situation, let's say in an interview, and maybe your thoughts are going faster than your mouth, or your mouth is going faster than your thoughts, or somebody has flustered you.
Yeah,
Tell us about a time you've been tongue-tied.
It used to happen more often in the interview, and what it is focus. you lose focus, and there are a lot of interviewers that do that. That was one of the skills I had to teach myself. I'll have a general idea of questions I've got, and then it's like, oh, this is going, wait a minute, this is interesting. And they're kind of opening the door, and then you ask the next question, and the interview goes somewhere, but it's an amazing interview. I have to learn that focus, because it's I'm looking at my questions, and I'm not listening to them. Now I'm hooped, because it's like, oh, I don't even know. And then you're talking to yourself, and I'm sure, Scott, going through this before yourself, I'm sure going, I'm listening to myself. I'm talking to myself, and I should be listening to someone. I don't even know where I am right now. And then you got to come up with that next. And so I've been tongue-tied in that way. But I interviewed Dr. Jack Kevorkian with his lawyer on the line. For those who don't know, Dr. Jack Kevorkian is the first one who offered assisted suicides, and illegally in the U.S. And it was a fascinating interview. That didn't. G. Gordon Liddy was sitting across from me from the White House. The Nixon era, and I was afraid the guy was going to jump up and garrote me because he was a scary dude. That didn't bother me. Alice Cooper, Brian May from Queen. It's funny, you realize that they're really real people. That's when it brings it down. I guess there are times with some athletes, sometimes you feel a little, you stumble a little bit, but then you realize that they look at you too. With, when you get that respect. I remember Wayne Gretzky getting off an elevator at the Hockey Hall of Fame one time, and he said, "Hey, Dan." And I went, hi. That's also put me in a position to understand what you say is important. Don't be flippant. You can sound flippant, but don't be flippant, because you could be hurting somebody. You can, and there's an effect. Somebody's listening. And you could affect someone else's life. So, because at that moment I went, he was coaching at the Phoenix Coyotes at the time. I went, did I criticize him on the air at any point? Well, he did say hello, so I think I'm okay.
Yeah, but why does he remember your name?
But why does he remember my name? Was it good or bad? Yeah. But yeah, and that's part of the whole thing as well. It is important what you say. And now, after years, I can roll in and I can put together a broadcast in little time. But the problem is, if you're mentoring somebody and they see you do that, they think they can roll and do the same thing. No, it's totally different. You got to know your preparation. I'm already preparing. When I'm walking in the door, I've probably got 2 bits already. And I've got stuff written down. I get up at 3:00 in the morning to do my stuff. So
how do you find your bits? Like Jerry Seinfeld's got the "is this anything" type thing.
The scary part is sometimes they actually happen while I'm speaking, and I come up with the end line, and I'll hit the mic off, and I'll go, "Wow, where'd that come from? That was cool. It worked." But I have to be free and comfortable and rested, because I'm listening to the words, and it's like, okay, there it goes. Now, and here's the ending. And boom, and then you hit it. But we do have a source that I'll review, and then, they get the Blue Jays and different stories that are happening. Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg, getting into a ring to fight. I'm going, okay, there's some stuff here. And sure enough, you can pull something out, one angle or another, and find something.
You ever been time where you knew you had to come up with some kind of content and you didn't have anything to fill the spot?
That's that nightmare.
Yeah.
You're lying in bed going, I got to fill this. What do I do? Yeah, I think more early on. Now, there's always something. When I'm doing my shift now in Keswick, Angela's on the air here, and sometimes there's technical issues going on. I'm literally remoting into this computer from mine and doing a morning show. So sometimes it's like, I got to run in. It's the music's ending, and okay, what are we going to do? Do the utilities? Okay, we're going to talk weather or whatever, and then something comes out of oh my goodness! We were talking before we started discussing on the air here the smoke. I walked. Okay, and there's a relatable story. Well, I didn't know. It was, all of a sudden I went to take the dog for a walk, and and now today I'm coughing or whatever. And here's some tips. Something. I heard. Keep the recycling on in the air for your car. That'll help. Those, boom. And then, your next song or commercial or whatever, and you've saved that little bit. And less is more sometimes.
What's the proudest moment for you?
You know what? Is doing the work here and being able to talk to people and saying, we've never had this many people out at our charity event, or, it's the grassroots stuff. I've been to the Olympics. I was there. I was in Athens. So that was a big celebration because it was back in Athens. And I was there for over a month working. That's cool. I've worked with really cool people. Peter Mansbridge, Brian Williams, and a lot of the hockey broadcasters over the years. And I'm proud of the fact that a lot of them are still friends. That's the kind of cool stuff. But yeah, being able to make a difference is, I think, probably the proudest thing really I can say. And people going, can you help us out? Sure. As a charity, yeah, we can help you out and hopefully bring out more people. We did the Run for the Diamond. We've done a number of different events, and that's really where it's at. And that's what you're talking about, local radio. That's what local radio is about.
What gets you choked up? Has there been a time where you've had to turn off the mic and just pull it together? I
lost it on the air. When I first started here, my sons were they were out of school. One of the kids who I knew when my son was growing up, my youngest son, killed himself, and found out. And I was on the air. I didn't say that he had taken his own life, just that we had lost him, and I lost it on the air. Mm-hmm. I just literally choked up. My throat it was gone. And those kinds of stories. When my eldest son's friend was killed in a car accident, we knew that Reach Road was closed. So I had the police story that it was closed. Why? And then my son texted me to say, we know who it was. It was Dylan Ross. And I was on the air. I just added some more music for a bit. And I did come on. And I knew it was him, but I couldn't. I wouldn't say anything. The family had to make that announcement. But I knew who it was. But I had to keep going on to say the road's closed and they're doing their investigation. Well, I knew what the results were and who it was. Those are the tough ones when you know people and kids. Those kinds of stories, and you tend to have to take a breath. My brother actually has an over/under on me because I've emceed a number of different funerals and things. He said to my mom one time, well, I give him 2 minutes and he's going to lose it. So, as a professional, you tend not to do it as much, but there are times. It just means you're human.
I listened to an interview with Howard Stern one time, and they were talking about him being on the air during 9/11 and how well he conducted everything as far as giving up-to-date information and stuff like that. Would you consider that to be your 9/11, or was there another thing?
I had one. Yeah. I had one. Yeah, actually, we were talking about it last week. Owen Tulk was in. He was talking to Frank in his office, and he had this thing from 640, AM 640. And Frank had been doing traffic at that point, and I was doing news on the morning show with Jesse and Jean. And there was a fire in North York, and it was a fatal fire. And one of our DJs, Kenny Coughlin, lived in the building. Kenny phoned in by mistake. His whole apartment was smoke. He didn't know he hit redial. And the last number that was dialed was the studio at the radio station. So we thought he was joking. He wasn't joking. He was choking because of the smoke. And we had him on the air. We were on the air from 6 o'clock, I think, until 11 o'clock that morning. I didn't leave the studio. I was taking in all the calls from the fire department. And we actually probably saved some lives, including Kenny's, because we had firefighters calling in saying what to do. It was an unusual situation where somebody had left the doors open, the fire doors, and it allowed air to push up. And where the smoke was, it was below him, and it would cover the balcony. So he couldn't go on the balcony. Don't go in the stairways. We had sent a reporter. Actually, it was just a disc jockey. He wasn't even a reporter. And he says, on the air, he goes, what's DOA? And we said, Adrian, step away. Just step away. He says, they're bringing bodies out. And he went into the lobby, and they were all laid out. And we said, walk away. I think they lost 6 people, and they were in the stairways. So Kenny was going to go out. We stopped him and told him to go in, stay in your apartment. And a firefighter called in and said, what do we do? And he told us, get the towels, cover off, and make sure you stay low. And it probably saved his life. And that won a New York award. So that was that moment. I remember just coming home and couldn't believe it. We went through that. But feeling that pride, and you're talking about pride, of knowing that we probably saved some other lives. We did hear from other people who were in that building, and they said, we were listening to you guys, and we did what you said and probably saved us.
As a consumer of radio, we feel like you or whoever's on the radio, you're with us. And so, therefore, we're with you, right? But it must get kind of lonely.
It does. Well, it's funny because during COVID, I was doing both radio stations. Frank would say to me, it's got to be a little unusual. He says, you come in here, you talk to thousands of people, you get in your car, you talk to thousands of people, and you don't see anybody. And I went, yeah, it is kind of weird. And you get used to that radio because it is theater of the mind. So I do think about people. Guy Rogers will laugh at sometimes I'll do some imitations, and I remember he always laughed. So when I do them, I think, oh, Guy Rogers, I bet if he's listening, he's laughing right now. Or now with Jody, I'm talking to her like she's hearing it for the first time. So that's how you can relate the stories, because otherwise it's just a microphone sitting in front of you. I had this discussion with somebody who used to work in the company, and they said, when you're going to these events, just take a picture. So if you're going to a farmer's market, just take a picture of the apple. No. I said, no. Why not? It's not about you. I said, no, it's not about me, but I'm going to be in that picture. You know why? Because people want to relate to somebody. So otherwise, we're just music. We're Spotify or whatever. No. Guess what? We're there. We're doing, and we're involved in the community. It's funny. You go through checkout sometimes, and I've been up in Sutton, and hey, you're the guy from the radio. Oh, you know the voice? No. I see your posts, and but it keeps people engaged, and now there's a connection, because that's what the community radio is about. It's about the community. I want people in the community to take ownership. This is our radio station. Somebody goes in bad. No. We've got a radio station. We've got a pool. We're a small town. Look at all the stuff we have here. That's the important stuff, and that's how you grow your listenership, and that's how you make it a better radio station, because suddenly they're going, hey, there's a piece of news. Guess what? Boom, they phone the radio station. And they tell the radio station. Now they're part of the whole mix, and it's not just one or two; it's everybody in the community.
We're going to do rapid fire.
Oh Lord!
Yes,
it's not real rapid fire. It's sort of like just we have a small list of questions that we just hit, and sometimes we even throw in our own, and so it's not even like you have to answer fast.
I was going to put my bulletproof vest on.
No, okay. It's not. It's sort of the weirdest rapid fire I think in any podcast. But anyway,
dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Winter or summer?
Summer.
Favorite restaurant in town?
Well, I'm gluten free now, so I have to be careful where I eat.
And you also got to think about potential advertisers.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Oh, they're all wonderful. I do like going to the Tin, and but Urban Pantry too. So
you're a glutard?
Yeah.
Okay, but can you eat burgers?
As long as they're gluten-free buns.
Okay, so
and actually, no, it depends on what kind of burgers.
Do you have a favorite burger in town that you can eat?
I don't, but I have pizza. If you go to the pizza question.
Okay.
Yeah, Domino's has an amazing gluten-free pizza. I mean, amazing. As in, Jody orders it, and she's not gluten-free. So then I know it's good. When the non-gluten people do it, then you know it's good.
What's a word you've always had difficulty pronouncing, other than my last name?
Yes. Yeah, that would be the one. That would be the one. Every public event going, did I get it right? No. That's all I take. I'm a slow learner. What can I say? I don't know if there's one that's kind of hit me. Sometimes the sports names, when you hit those. But once you learn the Russian phonetics, you can get by, especially with the hockey players. But yeah, your name would be the worst one.
Nephew. It's so easy. Nephew Camsell.
Nephew.
Is there anything about your voice now as an announcer that you wish you could change? Or that you're having a difficult time changing?
Yeah, I think what he's asking, because you're aging now. I think he's asking.
No, that's not it. Like, it could be anything. You could now that I just did an like I know at college they say don't do the ums, but you seem to be able to work that really well.
But you could do it by making it sound conversational. Then it doesn't become it has to be part of your conversation. It's sometimes pushing my voice too hard and cracked when I don't get enough sleep. That's when it's tough. Or you get a cold or something like that.
Have you ever totally lost it? Totally full-blown laryngitis?
The worst one ever was I was at Q107 doing a newscast, and I was coming down the hallway, and somebody went by with a lot of cologne on, and I got into the booth, started my newscast, and my throat literally went whoop, and seized up, and I couldn't, and I'm just waving my arms going, commercial, whatever. I don't care. Do something. And there was another one. It happened when I was at Global Television. And I remember starting the sportscast, and I just grabbed some water and just kept going. And nothing I could do about it. I actually, that was a horrible incident too, because one of my contacts ripped. So I had one contact. And, I can't remember the newscaster. He said, that's okay. One eye will compensate. So I was reading the prompter with one eye, with one contact. So I just kept leaning this way. So I could see it.
Camera 1, camera 2.
I can relate to that. And if you don't have contacts, you don't get it.
No. Yeah.
No idea.
Like, oh no, I've torn it. And I'm like, there's no way. I couldn't get another one. That's it. I'm done.
Who's been your favorite guest?
Ooh. I just like talking to people. So I don't know if I have a favorite.
Yeah, but is there one where you say to somebody that you interviewed this person and they just go, oh, wow, that's awesome?
Yeah, I mean, some of the celebrities that I mentioned. You know, I sat on set with Mark Messier and those guys. I used to work with like Larry Murphy and Denny Potvin. So that's cool. Like all the hockey guys get that stuff.
I bet they say that about you too. You know, I used to work with Dan Pollard.
Yeah, I got out of there. Alive somehow. No, I don't know. I don't know if there was anybody some people, like, it could be a small charity. Just some people you connect with, and it's cool to be able to do things. So I don't know if there's any one specific person. Like Brian Williams was amazing to work with, and I've interviewed him as well. And Brian did, like me, a huge good when I was a rookie. I'd never done the Olympics. I'm in Athens. So I did the call for the first 2 weeks. I was on every day doing softball, and I did the call for the gold medal game. And you think about what's going to be my call. Whoever wins, what's the call going to be? And I talked to Paul Romanuk, and he said the same thing. He goes, get a couple of ideas. So sure enough, the U.S. wins. And I remember the call was they had won the third gold medal. So it was gold in LA, gold in Australia, and gold at the foothills of the Parthenon in Greece, kind of thing, whatever. So I was in the newsroom after and finished my editing, because we used to edit for 3 different shows. And Brian walks in and goes, who did that call for softball? And he knew who it was. And I said, I did. He goes, that was an excellent call. And he did it in front of all the executive producers for the Olympics, and walked out. And I know I did it. He did it to promote me, which was really, really nice.
If you could change careers, either at this point in your life or just have a second chance, what alternate career would you have chosen?
That was my problem when Mr. Bettman didn't give me the option. What the heck do I do now? Well, Jody will joke because she goes, did you do like everything? You know, growing up, I did all kinds of different jobs, worked on a farm. At one point, I was working for a friend. He was in a refinishing business, and they also did kitchens and things like that. So I ran his office, and that was where I left and went back to CBC after that. So, because I really went through that, I don't know what I'm going to do. Do I go into PR? I'm not sure. One thing I almost did was, and I guess it is kind of media related, but politics. I was asked to get into politics a number of different times. And didn't, but I found it fascinating. I don't know if I would do it now. I don't think I would do it now, just because of the cynicism out there. And you can't do any right. People just don't want to talk to politicians.
There are a lot of facets about what you do here. So you're a manager, you're an announcer, you program music. What, out of all the things that you do you enjoy the most?
I can be, down, tired, whatever. I turn on that microphone. And I just want to make people laugh. Before you guys got here, I did a taped interview, and I said, can you just let me do my one segment? So I was doing one segment, and he laughed. And I said, well, at least I'll get one laugh this afternoon. I know that. And he said, no, it was good. There's like, okay, yeah, I made somebody laugh today. And, take a bit of a burden off them for even a couple minutes. That's the cool thing. And get their day started or finished when I'm doing afternoons here.
Okay, what's the worst thing?
Worst thing? Payroll.
Yeah, is that it?
Payroll.
You mind Frank's probably listening.
Admin, and do all the admin stuff. I have learned more about programming music, which is very cool. People don't know about spin rates and things like that, and how you position songs so they don't burn out. You don't hear them too many times. That's been a fascinating thing. So that's the cool part, is I'm still learning, despite the fact I'm 800 years old.
You're not 800. 799.
$7.99.
Come on.
Yeah, I got another year.
You've had the opportunity to speak to so many people over your career.
Yeah.
But who's one person that you'd still like to sit down and talk to, just to have a moment with, to pick their brain and garner some wisdom?
Right. The politicians were always interesting, because I knew kind of the background of what was going on with the politics. I'm just trying to think if there's anybody that I would love to be able to interview, or even today, because you just get a feeling like you could probably just get the interview. I don't run out and look for anybody per se. I don't know if there is anybody that I missed. I mean, those years at Q107, I had so many different interviews. It's the people, the personal stories, those kinds of things. When Mona Eamon comes in and talks about North House, and some of those stories, those are the kinds of things. And being able to give somebody a platform, I think maybe those are the people I want to talk to still.
Did you build that? Like, was it a point where you interviewed so many people that were like Brian May?
Yeah.
So you interview him. Is there a point where there's almost a callus where you just go, they're just normal people, they put their pants on just like anybody else, and now you go into like...
That saved me. Saved me in going into dressing rooms and things like that. I was... how do I phrase this properly? Ripped a New One by Reggie Jackson and some other ball players, Mark McGuire, and I didn't do anything. In fact, with Reggie Jackson, Gene Mock was the manager of the California Angels at that point. He came out and he goes, "Is there a problem?" "No, Skip, nothing's going." And he just was going up and down on me for no reason at all. And I walked out, and I remember going into the Blue Jay clubhouse, and Garth Orge and Rance Mullinax said to me, "What's up, kid?" And I told him, and they said, "He's an idiot. Don't worry about it." That's when you kind of put in the perspective, oh yeah, people are people. Mark McGuire, he was on steroids. Whether he wants to admit it or not, he was on steroids because his teammates told me. And I just went in and I said, "Mr. McGuire," and I didn't know if he was playing that night, but I was very "Mr. McGuire, do you have a second?" And he just turned around and told me to F off. And I went, "No, you know what? You F off." And I walked away. And his teammate behind me gave me a big thumbs up. So that's what he was like. So that's when you realize, you put you into perspective. These people are important or whatever, and they've done some big things, but they're people. And you know what? As a person, you're not a nice person. And
people are special. And so who's someone special to you that's maybe passed away that you'd like another conversation with?
That's, who one of the people is? Ted Barris's dad. He always fascinated me. I had the great opportunity to sit down with Ted Barris and his dad when they were writing books together. And just a fascinating man. He was a broadcaster and did so many things. Was in the war. Ted wrote a book about his time in the trenches. And just every time I met Alex, it was just like, wow, he's got so much life and he brought life to a room. Like, you knew he was in the room. That's cool. Those are the people that you want to gravitate to and have the opportunity to. I miss those conversations because I really respected what he had to say as a broadcaster, but also just as a writer, and to watch his interaction with Ted and to know that, the mentoring that went on there, that was really cool to watch. When you pass away and go to heaven, because all good broadcasters go to heaven, what do you hope God says to you? You left the mic open. You hope he says that? Yeah, because then I can go back and shut it off. Listen, nobody else around. Can I go back and shut it off? Because there's nobody else in the studio. There's nobody else in the studio. I'll be right back. Yeah, I'll be right back. Honestly. Give me another 10 years. Okay, no, I'll be back.
So pandemic hits. And you and I have done this weekly thing, this Wellness Wednesday thing over and over again.
Oh, yes.
And I'm looking at, well, we're talking about what would you do if something happened to the job you're currently in? And I'm looking at, okay, I need to come up with an alternative because we teach martial arts. You can't touch anybody. And so I talked to you and I said, where would you go to learn this radio stuff? And you mentioned Seneca. And it just so happened that one of the professors gave me a podcast assignment. And so thank you very much for inadvertently starting Uxbridge Beat. And thank you very much for being a guest.
No problem at all. Yeah, those were weird days. I was officially on unemployment insurance at that point because we had no advertisers. Yeah. And I think I told you, don't go into business.
Oh, no. I think the punching and kicking thing's paying off, actually, now that we're allowed to touch. But
Well, you guys do a great job.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for spending the time with us.
Thank you.
One of the things that you and I had to do when the pandemic hit was to consider what our options were for employment. And one of the things that you did that I was really proud of you for was that you went back to school and you got a diploma in radio broadcasting. Dan was pretty instrumental in that. So how did he help you?
He was the one that suggested it. So like I said when I closed off the interview, he didn't suggest that I go back to school, but basically I had said if I was interested in doing radio, where would I go to school? When I realized that everything was online, I realized I didn't have to go down to the city in order to do college courses. And I had time because we were still running the business. But in the end, we still had a lot of extra time that for some reason we don't have now. But I basically had asked him, I said, where would you go to learn this stuff? And he suggested Seneca.
I like how he talks about the comparison between when he went to school to when you went to school and the very antiquated equipment that they had and also very antiquated styles of teaching, so much more advanced now. I think it would be really cool if you had the opportunity, though, to go back and do it in person. Could you even go visit or something like that?
I think we definitely lost out.
Yeah.
Because when we were just finishing off the second year, we were allowed to use the studio. We were allowed to use a lot of the equipment. And that was the one thing that I remember Jim Carr, one of the professors there, he had said that we needed more hands-on. So we had the theory behind everything, but we didn't have the practical knowledge. So even how to work a board and have that kind of tactile ability, we started getting it, but we didn't have what probably graduates even the year before the pandemic, before I'd started, they would have that.
So there's a steep learning curve there. And even Dan has had to have that learning curve now with all the new technology, everything from timing to cataloging. Oh my gosh, you talked about payroll. So there's so much that goes into the vice presidency of a small town radio station and also being the on-air personality. He's balancing it quite well, don't you think?
Yeah. One point in the interview where he says, we can get away with not having the staff. He can get away with it, but I'm sure there's a point where Dan would like to have more staff members and more people that somebody that's doing payroll, for example.
I think if you don't know anything about the radio world, it would be a neat excursion for you, our listener, to head over to 105.5, maybe check in with Dan or with Angela first and see if there might be an opportunity for you to do a little tour of the station and see what they do in person, because it's pretty cool.
Yeah, let's just throw them all under the bus in one big
No,
podcast.
I said to get in touch with them first. But it would be neat because it's not just, standing there or sitting there talking into the microphone. You're doing all of the stuff. You're controlling all of the timing.
Yeah, and that's the one thing about a small town radio station is they don't have the producer. They don't have the person fielding phone calls, for example. They don't have all of that. And even when we were doing stuff for Seneca, there were jobs that we were learning how to do around a radio broadcast. And Angela in the morning, she's doing all of that all by herself. And so, Dan's back there and he's able to come in and help her when she needs it. But that's a one-woman show.
Good for you, Angela, and way to help Dan. So we're a one-woman, one-man show here on Uxbridge Beat. Congratulations on using your education to start this podcast. And I'm having a blast with you. And let's see where it keeps going.
Actually, that was one thing that I was able to do during the pandemic was I was able to get my intern hours in. So I had done stuff already with Dan because we'd had the radio segment. So the Seneca counted that. And then on top of that, I was able to do some stuff. I helped catalog some music. We did some stuff with the college station. I was able to get all those intern hours, but I'm thinking that we need an intern.
Oh,
we could have an Uxbridge Beat podcast intern.
we could provide maybe like community hours for a high school student. We're not going to pay them.
No. That's not how it works.
Volunteer.
Yeah.
That would be. What could we make them do? Our laundry. We got stuff to do around here. Walk the dog.
I'm liking the way this is going. We're doing a lot of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu lately, and so we've got a lot of geese that need to get washed on a regular basis.
Laundry. So if you're looking for an opportunity to get your radio internship hours, Uxbridge Beat is hiring. It will have nothing to do with radio or with the podcast, but we need our laundry done. So with that in mind, we're going to sign off before everybody else tunes out because they don't want to do our laundry.
Uxbridgebeat.ca. Get in touch with us at our website, Uxbridgebeat.ca.
I feel like we have to circle back around to Melissa Pateras now. She's going to sort out the laundry for us.
I wonder if she wants an intern gig.
Because she's not busy enough. Thank you, Uxbridge, for tuning in, and thanks to Dan for taking the time with us.
This has been a Capsule Broadcasting production. We've got laundry, but like any other good karate instructor, we'll let you wash and wax our cars too.